Welcome to All Strut No Fret One Shots, where I drink a shot and then have a shot at telling you the plot of an early modern play in one shot, no cuts, no edits. Tonight we're going to be looking at probably the most famous play from this period that is not by Shakespeare, that is Dr. Faustus by Kit Marlowe. And in honour of that, my shot is going to be this schnapps, which I long ago distilled into this cute little bottle because I think it honours both the German setting of the play and its interest in alchemy and disgusting chemicals. Okay, let's give it a try. Dr. Faustus was written in the 1590s but not published until 1604. When the scene opens, we see Dr. Faustus in his study surrounded by books. He's obsessed with books. He's obsessed with learning and discovering knowledge. And he goes through them. He goes through his books, considering the different areas of knowledge he might pursue, and they all get oddly conflated, like it's the same thing to study philosophy or science or medicine or theology, all pursuit of knowledge. But at the end, there is his book of magic, and that's the one kind of knowledge you are not supposed to pursue, but he decides it's the only one that really captivates him. So he calls his servant Wagner. I'm using English pronunciations because it is an English play. So he calls Wagner and he sends him off to go and get two of his colleagues who are already pursuing the arts of magic. So Wagner goes off, and then a good and evil angel appear, and they try to persuade Faustus to either go one way or the other for or against the study of magic. And so we get the psychomachia at the core of this play, the battle for the soul, the tension between good and evil. So Wagner brings back his two friends and they together begin to study magic. And then later we see Faustus on his own conjuring Mephistopheles. He brings up Mephistopheles and offers him his soul in return for 24 years of unlimited pursuit of knowledge and power and riches. Now, I should mention that Wagner is going to reappear in alternating scenes with Faustus all the way through, usually with two sidekicks, or sometimes the sidekicks come on their own. That is Robin and Rafe, who are boyish apprentices, sort of junior to Wagner. And so if it sounds like I'm just ploughing through Faustus doing a whole lot of stuff, it's imagine that it's actually interdispersed with scenes of these lower class comic characters getting up to all sorts of hijinks, usually involving messing around with books and things that they shouldn't mess with. So Mephistopheles says that he needs to check in with Lucifer. So he goes and does that. He comes back, he says Lucifer says that's fine, and so Faustus agrees to the bargain, and devils dress him in fancy raiment, and they have a conversation about the things he can and can't do. And then then the good and evil angels appear again, yes. And they have an argument about whether Faustus is already damned or whether he could still repent and save his soul. Then Lucifer turns up and he conjures a pageant of the 7 deadly sins. They don't really do much. They just say a couple of lines and walk across the stage. And then we get a series of things that over the next years Faustus does with his powers. These include becoming invisible so he can snatch food away from in front of the Pope and then hit him, conjuring the spirit of Alexander the Great and his paramour, who oddly enough appears to be female, in order to impress the emperor, and inflicting horns on a knight who sassed him, conjuring grapes in the off-season to impress a duke and duchess. And it's all that trivial. I mean, really, there is a real poverty of imagination here and very little of the pursuit of knowledge or even power or riches that he was talking about in the first place. So then his time is up. Almost up. First of all, we get the encounter with Helen. So Mephistopheles comes back and he conjures the spirit of Helen of Troy for Faustus, and that's where you get that really famous line that everyone knows, was this face that launched 1,000 ships and burned the topless towers of Ilium. That's where that comes from. And he sees this vision of Helen and he decides he really wants to shag her. So he goes off to do that, and a lot of people argue that is the point where his soul is really damned, because she's kind of a succubus figure, because she's been conjured by a demon. So he's probably lost from that point. And then an old man shows up and says, oh, isn't it terrible that he should repent because his soul is lost? And then we get to the point where his time is up. And Faustus says goodbye to the scholars that he knows who have pursued wisdom in more appropriate ways. And then he has the thing the play is really famous for, which is this enormous soliloquy at the end. The clock strikes 11. The speech that he gives doesn't actually take an hour. His soul's being snatched away at midnight, but there's actually a stage direction for the sounding of the half hour. So we as an audience are supposed to understand that this speech takes an hour to give. And this is where the play really pulls us out of medieval theatre, where we always saw good and evil angels, the externalised psychomachia, and draws us in to where modern theatre has been ever since, which is the internalising of that psychomachia. So we actually get the conflict of the spirit within the individual. So that's a really exciting shift for drama, and the most modern, least medieval looking bit of the play. So over the course of this long speech, Faustus struggles with whether or not he could still find it in a softening of his heart to repent and ask for God's help. But in the end, he cannot do it, and the devils appear and drag him off to hell. And let that be a lesson to all of you who pursue knowledge via the wrong channels. So thank you, Kit Marlowe, for the work you did there in bringing theatre in the English-speaking language out of, in the English-speaking world, out of the medieval period and into where we've been ever since, which is sad dudes having internal struggles.